What's good, friends list? Episode 52 of the Gamecast coming at you. Microsoft has officially decided to shut down its streaming service, Mixer, and with that decision comes a myriad of uncertainties. So, this week, we discuss what the future of streaming looks like for Microsoft and the Xbox brand, why the Facebook gaming partnership could end up being potentially damaging, and the dichotomy of the situation when compared to big names like Ninja and Shroud to smaller scale streamers and how it impacts their audiences. Plus, we've got tons of new Cyberpunk 2077 news coming out of their Night City Wire event, and while the game looks to evolve the open world RPG genre to new heights, are fans truly staying realistic with their expectations for what can be achieved in the game? Spoilers, of course they're not. Are you kidding me? Also, it looks as though Rocksteady could potentially be working on a Suicide Squad game for their next title, but will video games prove to be the right entertainment medium to have a Suicide Squad project work outside of its source material? All of this, and much more, on the newest episode of the Gamecast.
Now the fun begins.
Richard.
Stop! You're violating the law.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox Game Pass, and PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us, rate us, review us, all that jazz, wherever you get a podcast at, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games alike, and our dope giveaways. I'm your host, as always, Travis White, aka Travelus, on most internet platforms. Joining me, as always, my partner in crime, Mike P-Pack. Mike, what's good, what's going on, and what have you been playing? Or what have you just been doing in life, I guess?
I just finished my Calc 2 final right before recording.
There you go, free man.
I took like a 5-week class, and it was really awful. And,
real talk, that shit, like, doing those condensed courses like that are fucking, like, in theory, they're great, because now you're done with it. You don't have to worry about it. It's like, you get in and get out with it for the most part. But once you're in it, it fucking blows. Like, yeah, the condensed, like, especially with something like Calc 2, or, like, I remember I took a higher level accounting course in college, in undergrad for that, and, like, it was the same type of way. It was a condensed course, like, in and out type of thing, and I did it with statistics, too, and I fucking hated it. It was like, yeah, I'm gonna do that, you know, I'll be able to get it in, get it done, and not have to worry about it. But then, like, once I started getting into it, I was like, oh no, yeah, this is not fun.
it's a situation where, like, by itself, it's nice to just have time to dedicate to it. Mm-hmm. But again, I mean, it's a 6-week or 5-week course. Like, it's like awesome because, like, yeah, you just have time to dedicate to it, and you can just, like, really take it seriously. But at the same token, it's like, oh my god, I'm ready to die type thing. So thankfully done with that. So now I can get back to, like, streaming a bit more than what I have, and just, like, kind of get back to gaming a lot more.
Wait, you said streaming. What do you mean? Where are you streaming? What are you talking about?
I mean, I haven't been streaming, but yeah, you can find me at Twitch at MP_Toy Soldier. But I mean, when I do play games, it's been a lot of, like, I've basically any free time I've had. If Halo 3 Hardcore is the playlist, I've been playing that on the Insider build, and still sticking to, like, Age of Empires, and still spending a lot of free time golfing as much as I can. So no, I'm a creature of habit. If you guys haven't been able to tell on this show, I pretty much play the same games, do the same stuff. So nothing crazy for me, but you know, just trying to live my life.
Yeah, and even, like, I threw it in our group chat earlier today. I was like, hey, I didn't realize that it was going live today, but hey, Steam sale's live, you know, RIP my wallet. And you're basically like, you know me, I got 3 games right now that are kind of in my Rolodex of what's going on. And you're like, unless something major comes out, I'm kind of sticking to that for a little bit. And I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, and to be quite honest, I haven't really been able to, I shouldn't say that. In terms of the content surrounding this podcast, I have not been playing much. Last Friday, clearly was a big day in video games with The Last of Us Part 2 that came out, and one of my most anticipated games of this generation easily. And that was all I did for the most part, playing that in terms of what I've been playing. And I rolled credits on that a couple of days ago, and I'm not gonna sit here and talk about it because it's an Xbox show. I would like to have a discussion about it because Mike Collins is also playing it too. At some point, I'd like to sit down and talk with him because it is by far one of the most impactful pieces of media I've consumed. From a narrative perspective, from a presentation perspective, and I don't say, and like I said, I won't talk on it long because that's not the platform that, the content that this is aimed for. But at the same time, fuck it, it's our show.
Exactly.
I think it is important to talk about because of the trolling that's going on, a lot of the, not trolling, but like the hateful speech that's going on with this game because, shocker, it revolves around somebody who isn't a straight white male in a position of power. So shocker, people are a little offended about it. All the fucking neckbeards are getting out of whack with it. So, I just want to say that it is, if you have the opportunity to play that game, no matter, if you're able to just play it on a base PS4 or anything like that, do it, because this is something that, it's not perfect. By no means. No game is ever perfect, but this is a pretty monumental step in storytelling and presentation and how games approach sensitive subjects. And I don't even say sensitive, but it really tackles real world projects and real world problems, I should say, real world problems that are going on in terms of, homophobia and xenophobia, and it tackles
arachnophobia
and arachnophobia too. I mean, fucking spiders, man. I can't. But it handles that all in such a way that it puts it front and center, and it doesn't shy away from it in a way that will help. It makes it that those stories that should be heard and should have been heard and are important, and they're front and center, and it doesn't give a fuck if you care about it or not. And I really love that about it. Like I said, it transcends something that's the narrative of it and the approach of it. You can't tell it in a movie. I don't think you can tell it in a TV show. Maybe a book, but even then, I think this is the reason why storytelling in games is so impactful when it works and how it can be done. So by all means, I'm not going to stick on that. It's an Xbox show, but if you have the opportunity, I say it all the time, everybody who appears on this show plays on every single console or has a feeling in different consoles. We love Xbox, we love PC gaming, but we're clearly, have our hands in other jars type of thing. So by all means. But with that being said, Mike, let's get into what normally I say is some housekeeping, but I'm going to kind of retool that a little bit, and when we do have actual housekeeping stuff with the show, in terms of giveaways and whatnot like that, I will talk about that, but I figured I should probably stop calling it housekeeping and be more of, news-oriented, where the smaller news stories and things that come up that don't necessarily warrant a full-blown discussion necessarily, in terms of deep dives and whatnot, like we usually do with what's going on in the Xbox ecosystem. But we're calling it Button Mash, and really it's just going through and doing these quick hits that come with some of the news that's coming out. So let's get into it real quick. First up on the docket, Marvel's Avengers is confirmed for Xbox Series X and PS5, will be available at launch of those systems, and current-gen players can upgrade to the next-gen for free. Also, Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, yeah, not the pun necessarily, that's literally what it's called, It's About Time, was revealed earlier this week, and it will be launching on current-gen systems, that's Xbox One and PS4, on October 2nd. Also, shocker, next-gen Mortal Kombat and Injustice games are planned and seem to be in the work due to recent job postings. Shocker, one of the most influential and impactful video game franchises of all time is going to have a sequel on next gen. Shocker. Crossfire X, the free-to-play first-person shooter title that is insanely huge in Asian markets and is coming exclusively to the Xbox family of systems, has an open beta this weekend. If you have Xbox Live, you can jump into it. Go and check that out. Following up that, the bigger one of these, EA Play happened last week. happened after we recorded, naturally, so we weren't able to get in on the show. But at EA Play, EA announced Apex Legends would be coming to Steam and show cross-support and cross-play across console and PC. That includes Xbox One, PS4, and now Switch as well, and PC. But the big news of that coming to Steam probably was the biggest one on the PC side and the competitive side. So
yeah, because Origins sucks.
Yeah, anywhere to get away from Origins, I'm all good. I will gladly double dip on some games that, like, if I really want to play, like Mass Effect, I own it on PC already through Origin because I got it for like $2, but now that it's back on Steam, I'm buying it on Steam because I just don't want to fucking play on Origin if I want to.
Right?
It's only $5, so I'm like, yeah, fuck it, whatever. Bigger news that's coming out of that, probably the biggest news out of all of it, a new skate game is finally in early development, as in literally Cuz Perry and Duran Chung literally just showed up on stream saying, it's happening. All right, we'll see ya. Like, nothing else. There was no screenshots, no nothing. It is just saying, hey, it's happening. Your guys pushing for this actually made this happen. So, great news. I'm a big skate fan, so I'm hyped to see that come back. And then EA also, shocker, confirmed BioWare, Criterion, and DICE are all working on next-gen titles while showing some in-engine teases of environments which appear to be really from the next Dragon Age, Need for Speed, and Battlefield games, respectively. So, and then lastly, too, like I said, Steam Summer Sale is now underway until July 9th, so fucking hide your wallet. That's all I'm saying. So, Mike, anything stick out to you just from those quick hits before we go and move from button mashing to the actual deep dive news of the week?
I think the biggest news stories, just for me personally, are, you know, not only Apex coming, the new Mortal Kombat and Injustice, like you said, it's kind of like a whoop-de-doo type thing because you know it's going to come, but it's still really nice to read. But Crash Bandicoot 4, for me, is one of the biggest storylines. Mm-hmm. I think that, you know, everyone that has ever played Crash Bandicoot is really a huge fan. And when it comes to platformers, you know, there are platforming games that are relatively new, but I think everyone's going to be really, like, everyone that has played Crash Bandicoot games in the past is going to be really thrilled to hear that there's a new Crash Bandicoot game coming because, you know, I think the platforming genre is a genre that will kind of live forever. It's a genre that anyone at any time can really enjoy, no matter your age, no matter your skill level. I just think it's a really fun way to play video games, and I'm absolutely sure, you know, that there's going to be people out there that really love to play it. So I'm excited to hear about all that, and you know, that's about all I have to say about it. How about
definitely? I mean, you touch a good point that I personally, I'm with you. I think the platforming genre will always have a home in gaming. I don't think that's something that will ever go away because of the diversity that's within that. It's almost like the diversity that you find within RPGs, that you find within even like some sports games and whatnot, that there'll always be a home for that because of the density of the genre itself. But specifically with platforming, there's such a, you know, wide array of, hey, we got 3D platforming, like, you know, even sandbox style, like, you know, Mario Odyssey, and even moving with Mario 2 to like 3D platforming in the style of isometric, almost like Mario World, or 3D World, I mean, I'm sorry. But then you get into more of the 2D perspective, 2D, the like, what do they call it, 2.5D, that is kind of like Crash Bandicoot, where it's 3D but mostly 2D when you're going through and doing it either behind the shoulder going forward, or it's going side-scrolling almost, where it's like 2.5D, then also 2D with games like Celeste and things like that. You know, it's always going to have a home, and I know for sure, I feel pretty strongly saying this as well, when the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy dropped on PS4 and then onto Xbox One and whatnot, but I picked it up on PS4 right around when it came out because you, me, Adam, we were all hyped about just being able to play that and having, you know, that classic experience with Crash Bandicoot that isn't necessarily available at that time because of it being caught up within Activision. You couldn't go back and play the Naughty Dog original games on the PSN store or really anywhere else. And there's such a big blank spot between really post Crash 3 Warped and like the Skylanders shit that came out with fucking Crash Bandicoot. And like nobody really cared outside of that. So
Right.
like fans of that, and I'm not a big Crash Bandicoot fan, but like I do have fond memories of going back and playing those games on PS1 and then playing them on modern consoles when they did come out with the Insane Trilogy. So, I'm really happy that it seems like Activision is putting the right studio involved with this. The studio that handled the Insane Trilogy, who handled CTR, the Crash Team Racing remake. So I think having a game like this that's clearly been in development for a while, it's been rumored for a long time, I'm glad to see it announced too as also just a straight up, it's a third-party title that's coming out. It's not, hey, I was waiting, to be honest, when I started hearing rumblings about this maybe about a month and a half ago, I was going to bring them up on the show, but from what I heard, it sounded like it was going to be a PS4 timed exclusive, much like the Insane Trilogy was, and they were going to announce it at the PS4 event. So I'm glad it wasn't, because I think that was the one thing that held back the Insane Trilogy a little bit, because I think it would have even gotten into, much more hands right off the bat, even having it on, and not just Xbox, but I'm talking PC, I'm talking Switch as well. So I'm happy to see this. People are excited about this. People are hyped about it. People are reacting well to what they're putting out. Unlike whenever Activision scooped up the Crash IP after Naughty Dog let it go and PlayStation moved away from it, and they started putting out kind of doo-doo games with it for the most part that nobody just really cared about. So
right, and even someone like in tune with the community or in tune with the gaming industry, like myself, at first I didn't realize that the Insane Trilogy was a timed exclusive. I thought it was literally just PS4 exclusive. So like therein lies the rub, where we had the discussion last week about timed exclusives and everything, and it's just like it's cool, but also at the same time there might be people out there like me who just would have thought like, I'll never be able to get it on Xbox One. Oh well, I just won't play it. And you're just taking it out of potential players' hands. And at what point do you say to yourself as a company, like, maybe that's not like the best idea for us?
Yeah, no, definitely. So, but yeah, I'm right with you. I'm excited for that. It's probably the biggest one to come out of there. Outside of obviously the Skate announcement, I'm really excited about that. But yeah, just right on, immediate things that are coming. Like I said, that Crossfire X beta is this weekend. That is a huge game in Asian markets, like one of the most popular games in the world. So that was actually big news when Xbox picked that up to an exclusive, console exclusive, at least coming overseas to us last year at E3 when they announced that. So definitely check that out. I've heard it's dumb fun for the most part. I believe that's how Ryan McCaffrey over at IGN, his preview basically said. He's like, I had a blast playing it. It's not that deep, but it is what it is, what you would expect from a free-to-play title first time coming onto console over here. So, Mike, let's get into the news for this week, and we have some big hitters this week, to say the least. Definitely, obviously, the elephant in the room, the biggest news coming out, Microsoft is shutting down Mixer and partnering with Facebook Gaming. This comes from Tom Warren over on The Verge. As always, link in the description for all these articles that we have. Make sure you go over there and give clicks to everyone. Especially some of these are pretty detailed that I didn't want to leave a lot out. So, not that I'm completely taking from all of these articles, but if you can, definitely go over there and make sure you give them a click. So, Microsoft is closing its Mixer service on July 22nd and plans to move existing partners over to Facebook Gaming. The surprise announcement means Mixer partners and streamers will be transitioned to Facebook Gaming starting today, and Microsoft will no longer operate Mixer as a service in a month's time. Microsoft has struggled to reach the scale needed for Mixer to compete with Twitch, YouTube, and even Facebook Gaming, which has led to today's decision. Quote, we started pretty far behind in terms of where Mixer's monthly active viewers were compared to some of the bigger players out there, says Phil Spencer, Microsoft's head of gaming, in an interview with The Verge. I think the Mixer community is really going to benefit from the broad audience that Facebook has through their properties and the ability to reach gamers in a very seamless way through the social platform Facebook has. Microsoft is partnering with Facebook to transition existing Mixer viewers and streamers over to Facebook Gaming in the coming weeks. On July 22nd, all Mixer sites and apps will automatically redirect to Facebook Gaming. Existing Mixer partners will be granted partner status with Facebook Gaming, and any streamers using the Mixer monetization program will be granted eligibility for Facebook's Level Up program. Mixer viewers with outstanding Ember balances, channel subscriptions, and Mixer Pro subscriptions will receive Xbox gift cards. Microsoft's choice to partner with Facebook is clearly a strategic one that's also related to broadening the appeal of its upcoming xCloud game streaming service and its overall gaming efforts. Microsoft will work closely with Facebook to bring xCloud to Facebook gaming, allowing viewers to click and immediately play games that people are streaming. It's a vision that's very similar to Google's ambitions with Stadia, but Mixer has lacked the scale and viewership to truly deliver this broadly. Microsoft recruited exclusive streamers like Ninja and Shroud with big deals, but they haven't been enough to get more people using the service over rivals. Ninja, Shroud, and other top streamers are now free to rejoin Twitch or stream on Facebook Gaming. Microsoft faced a decision between ditching Mixer, selling it off, or even investing more money in without a guarantee it would hit the scale it needs to compete. Quote, "It wasn't as much about return on sale, it was about finding a partner that was the best things for the community and the streamers," explains Spencer. "We think this is it, and it gives us a great place to launch more xCloud content and give gamers the ability to play there." Microsoft has talked about reaching 2 billion gamers with its vision for xCloud, but Mixer wasn't in a strong enough position to help achieve that goal. Quote, "When we think about xCloud and the opportunity to unlock gameplay for 2 billion players, we know it's going to be critically important that our services find large audiences, and Facebook clearly gives us that opportunity," says Spencer. "It's not clear exactly when we'll see xCloud show up in Facebook gaming, but it's a key part of this new partnership. Microsoft is getting ready to launch xCloud streaming generally later this year as part of the company's Xbox Game Pass offering." Quote, "I don't think we're going to have to wait too long to see the outcome of the collaboration between the two companies to enable this tech for Facebook gaming viewers," reveals Spencer. So, a lot of information to digest, a lot of stuff moving around right now. So while they've been struggling for quite some time with stagnant viewership when compared to Twitch and Facebook to make this move not completely unthinkable, it's still surprising how swiftly it happened with really no rumors or leaks preceding it. Nobody really knew. Slasher did mention, though, he had a lead on it like the night before, but couldn't get it confirmed or whatnot. So, but really outside of that, nobody, it was pretty blindsiding. While big names like Ninja, Shroud, and, what's his name, King Gathalion is over there too. They'll make out like bandits really with all this. Both Shroud and Ninja already confirmed they were paid out in full with their contracts of 30 million and 10 million respectively, which is fucking ridiculous. Those who are really feeling the hit with this not only are clearly the Mixer employees who knows if they're going to be transitioned internally within Microsoft or whatnot, or just let go, but really small to mid-scale streamers. Those who have smaller but dedicated audiences will really now have a much bigger percentage hit of lost viewers when they transition to their next streaming home. So, Mike, what are your initial thoughts regarding the closure of Mixer? Do you feel Facebook really was the right partnership for Microsoft given their privacy and censorship and all the other issues they're currently having in the world outside of gaming alone? And, how will this really impact both, Microsoft heading into next gen when you incorporate how integral Mixer was to their plans with both the Series X and xCloud?
It's definitely it's one of those moves that while you're not all that shocked that it happened, it's just still kind of seismic, just for the simple fact that they still had to pay out their contracts to Ninja and Shroud, and it just feels like they literally just burnt money in a barrel. And for Ninja and Shroud, I think the biggest thing to take away from them, or from this for them, is they win. They're just gonna go back to Twitch. They're gonna retain their old, they're gonna retain their old community, and it's gonna be amazing. Now, obviously, when Ninja switched from Twitch to Mixer, there was some bad blood there. There was some stuff shared or stuff being hosted by Ninja's channel that was, we'll just go ahead and use the
He's
term
talking about porn.
Yeah, it wasn't very good, and the fact that Twitch let that happen definitely seemed like there was a lot of bad blood between the two parties. Then when Shroud kind of goes over, you kind of said to yourself, holy shit. But again, it's a situation that it really made sense, because for Shroud, he's getting more money. Mixer's trying to get some viewership over. The lore of those two being there, definitely, big names. However, I think when you look at it, if I was to break it down in a way of like winners, losers, and kind of in the middle of the road, you're not really winning, you're not really losing. Obviously, the employees of Mixer, I feel for them. It's horrible because, like you said, it was kind of just a shockwave sent over the gaming landscape. It was just like one day, it was just like snap, boom, done.
Yeah.
Mixer's over, and I'm sure there's a ton of employees that were kind of held in the dark, and that's terrifying. And something myself with my employer, I kind of feel, and a lot of my coworkers are kind of concerned. So it's scary to see that happen to other parties, but they're obviously a big loser. Another loser would be, like you said, the small to mid-level streamers at Mixer that had pretty dedicated fan bases over there that were growing and monetized and
and they were completely blindsided. There's so many of them that I can't remember who put out the tweet, but it was pretty powerful that literally showed the Mixer like homepage or the browse page like you would see on Twitch if you haven't for some reason ever been on Mixer before. Set up very similar, obviously, but where it gives you kind of a live thumbnail of what's going on, and it was like going through and just people like crying and people like clearly distraught, like, or just like head in their lap, like just like, cool, I guess we're done here. Like,
and for a lot of those people, the first thing that comes to mind is like, obviously when you're a small fish in a big pond, like on Twitch, it can become redundant. It can become frustrating. It can become exhausting to sit there and grind stream after stream and just not really see much come out of it, because let's face it, Twitch as a platform is actually pretty bad at exposing new, smaller streamers. They like their cash cows, and from a business standpoint, it really makes sense. So those mid-level, small-level streamers over at Mixer that might have been making a little bit of a living, or even some that were full-time streamers at Mixer, like, you basically laid them off. And most people, there's going to be people out there that are going to be like, duh, streaming and this playing video games for a living, like, obviously that career is going to be volatile and you can't rely on it. And, all of that is common sense and everything, but it still doesn't lessen the blow that it's just really shocking to see happen. But winners, I mean, obviously Shroud and Ninja, huge winners. They got paid. Now they're back to where they're going to get paid even more by Twitch. And I mean, those guys just absolutely won. And you can't tell me, like, I don't care what either of them say. Neither of them could see this coming. When they get such big contracts, there could be zero fiber of their being that they would have been able to predict that this was going to happen beforehand. So it's pretty much just dumb luck for them. They followed the money, and then they're going to wind up getting more, which is insane. Yeah. They got it in a quicker dose, which is also insane. But another winner to me, and it's near and dear to our hearts on this show, but Halo Esports, they've been suffering big time because the viewership has been split over the two parties, Twitch and Mixer. And at this point now, I guess they could sign an exclusive deal with Facebook, but at that point in time, pretty much it's like, are you really trying to kill your esport? So, it's a win for Halo Esports, because now they're going to be on one platform, hopefully. So, that's kind of my take on the whole thing. It's really sad. It's really it's not depressing, but it is really scary that like a corporation would just kind of close up shop like that. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the matter, though.
Before I get into it, too, I forgot to mention this in Button Mash, but yesterday, I guess when we're recording, it was yesterday. Yeah, I'm losing track. Quarantine got my days all fucked up. But yesterday, 343 did put out a teaser that is clearly, referencing Halo Infinite. So, that really didn't say anything outside of it was dealing with the brutes and whatnot. But just some statistics on that alone, because you mentioned this in there in terms of viewership and whatnot, but just for Halo in general, this comes from Benji Sales over on Twitter at Benji Sales. Go over it. He's really one of the up-and-coming, in my opinion, video game business analysts in the game right now, really on Twitter too. But provides excellent sales coverage, analytics coverage, trends, things like that on the business end of gaming. Go over there, give him a follow. But he put this out yesterday regarding that. Just in case anyone forgot, the launch of a new Halo title is a massive deal. This morning's random Halo Infinite teaser already hit 1+ million views and 50,000+ likes. Infinite is the opportunity to get Halo back into being one of the biggest, IPs in the game. But he said most impressive about today's Halo teaser, he followed up with this, already reaching 2 million views, 81,000 likes, and 24,000 retweets. There is nothing on the clip that actually says it's Halo Infinite. It's simply the excitement of knowing that's what's being teased. It's a great early sign of momentum. So I just want to throw that in there because you mentioned it. I forgot to put it on top of the show. But no, but definitely. Getting back to Mixer, though, like I said, the thing that bothers me the most with it is that clearly, obviously, the issues that Facebook is dealing with right now with privacy, and I don't want to get, to me personally, it's not a political thing. It's just kind of a human rights thing, and it's a human, your data is private at times, and your personal information should be private and whatnot. So, the things going on with Facebook right now, to an extent, I should say, but the things going on with Facebook right now clearly is a little bit of a red flag that I kind of hesitate with going to Facebook gaming. But at the same time, with that too, just at the base level of this, Facebook's gaming platform is fucking huge. I don't agree with everything on there, but I'm just saying from an analytics setup, it's probably smart for Microsoft. That gets their name out to the massive Facebook audience, not just gaming in general, but partners them with them, that when we're getting towards the Series X launch, you're going to see a lot more incorporation with that. You're going to see, Xbox Series X plastered all over that. That's about it in terms of how good it is. Because outside of that, you're, from an actual employee, from a personnel, from your audience standpoint, it's just so disheartening that we're hearing about, not to mention all of the, insensitive things that are going on with Microsoft right now, from a Black Lives Matter standpoint and racial injustice, that we're hearing about some of the comments that have been made, and also sexual, allegations and whatnot. But outside of that, just for going in, out of the blue for the most part, not even giving kind of like a, an update of any sort to their employees. That's what scares me the most, that it seemed like it was just okay, we're done. It's not, it seemed very short-sighted that, and realistically, the whole Mixer program, as the months went on post Ninja leaving, it seemed more and more like it was very short-sighted, that it didn't instantly click. It didn't instantly get that short-term success that they were hoping for with the Ninja move. They were expecting not all of it, but a vast majority of his audience to consistently come over and watch him. That clearly didn't happen. So they, went out, got Shroud, trying to build these up, and then at one point it just became a fucking, liability, financial liability. They became a black mark on their fucking, I'm sure, on their fucking cost analysis. That was just a huge black mark. So, to me, seeing what they did with those, and that's why I've never been a huge fan of people doing exclusivity deals when it comes to streaming from a monetary standpoint, because if I'm a streamer, me personally, sure, obviously, clearly, if somebody comes to me with $30 million, I don't bag on Ninja and Shroud for signing that, because that'd be fucking stupid not to do that, because I'm looking out for my family first and foremost and their future and whatnot. And if it's guaranteed money, you bet your ass I'm probably taking that. But at the same time, if I'm somebody who's maybe a King Gathalion level, where you're big but you're not Ninja big, you're not Shroud big, I would want to be on every platform possible. I would want to try to co-stream. I would want to try stream. I would want to get my message and my audience as broad as possible. And exclusivity hurts that, in my opinion. So, to me, that's another, kind of red flag that I see with all of this, that these big exclusivity deals, and Twitch does the same thing, but Twitch can also do that because they're the fucking big dick swinging still. When it comes to, when you think of game streaming, you think of Twitch first and foremost. That's just, it's starting to become the Kleenex or the Charmin or whatever of, you know, that product is just known, the product name is just known, the brand name I should say, is just what the product's known as almost. So they're getting to that level with that. But the most disheartening thing is clearly, outside of employees and whatnot, is just the small streamers. It's those streamers that you see are, well, I had 100 viewer average every day, which is awesome. And, you know, I had a couple hundred subs and it was a great, you know, part-time gig that I have. And I love just making content. And, you know, it was great to have those committed fans come through and check out my content, vibe with me, and it's shut down. Now you have to bring all of those over, where if Ninja is having, you know, let's say, I don't know, I haven't watched Ninja in so long, I don't know what he averages at anymore. I'm just going to say he has 10,000 people watching him on average. He brings those over, say half of them come. That's still 5,000 people that he's going to have watching. He'll be okay. Like, those those big scale streamers, that's not going to really hurt them because they're eventually going to build those audiences back up, but they have such a big foundation that it's like, it's whatever. Where if small scale streamer who has 100 people watching him transitions over, you know, I think of my boy MC Fixer on, you know, part of the Kind of Funny Best Friends. Like, he's finding great success right now on Twitch, and he thought about moving over to Mixer at one point, and he even said, I'm so glad it didn't go, obviously, but he's at that point now where he's starting to get to that, like, you know, he has, you know, a couple hundred subs right now, where it's like, if he would have went and moved from there, then it's like, okay, that's removing such a bigger percentage of what he has and what he makes off of that. And I know that's not everything, but in terms of the actual, like, viewership base, you know, it just sucks. It's just a shitty situation that should have been handled better, in my opinion. That seemed like it just left a lot of people to, like, out to dry, out of nowhere. And
you haven't even talked, like, you've talked about viewership numbers, which are obviously important, but you haven't talked about the guys like Ninja and Twitch, Ninja and Shroud, who have all kinds of, like, advertisement deals.
Oh yeah. You know
what I mean? So, like,
it's not just, it's like you see these big scale YouTubers who are like, kind of, they'll either get thrown under the bus with like, this video can't be monetized. Half of them are like, well, don't worry, I have a sponsor on it, and like, I'm gonna make vastly much more off of that. Like, I don't care if it's monetized or not.
Right, and it's just like, obviously Ninja's in a position where he probably wouldn't, he doesn't even have to work ever again if he didn't want to, if he manages money correctly. So it's like, when you're looking at it in that sense, like, absolutely. But I mean, I didn't even cover the Facebook gaming because to me it's like, it's a no-brainer. Like, I guess if it's your livelihood and you have to stay monetized and you never had affiliate on Twitch, you have to suck it up and go to Facebook. But for anyone that's like, basically has the decision to make, like, it wouldn't even be a question to me that I would go to Twitch over Facebook for streaming games live. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's just such a dense ball of wax that it just doesn't, I don't know, it's just so complicated, man, and it's just such a disheartening thing. And I personally, I was so big on Mixer whenever the narrative for the Xbox brand started changing a little bit and you started seeing the future plans, and really probably about 2018, I'd say, like that E3 in 2018, whenever Cyberpunk was first re-revealed, and they Phil even said at the end, like, mentioned, like, we're working on the next Xbox now. Like, he officially put it out that it's in the works. You started to see that narrative changing because they started doing the model of, we're giving you games. Here's Game Pass with games. Whenever they started doing that and they started setting that up, I started saying, bet on Mixer. Like, put money on Mixer. If you're a streamer and you're getting into streaming, if you're a content creator and you're wanting to get a home for streaming, now's the time, I think, to invest in Mixer. And I fully believe that then. And clearly, you know, obviously that didn't play out, but the way that it was set up, it was set up for Microsoft to have pretty much, like, comparative to Sony, have that over Sony, where you could go in and you bring your Xbox in, you're able to literally stream right from it. And granted, you could do that with a PlayStation. You can do that now on either console, but you're able to stream directly from it with content integration within it. You're able to, bring in your Game Pass account. You're able to bring in now xCloud with it, integrate that in it. If you want to just say, hey, I'm doing games with viewers right now in Halo Infinite, I'm opening up the xCloud option on it. Cool. Your viewers, if they have the subscription, I'm sure it'll be some kind of subscription model with it when they fully unveil it and whatnot. Hey, we have it. Here you go. Jump in with me right now for the next half hour. I'm doing viewer games. Here's the invite to everyone. They could just pull it up right there on their phone or right there on their laptop or on their TV, wherever they're watching it at. So it had such potential that it's just so sad to see that not work out. And I still think, I don't agree with Facebook. I don't agree with everything that's going on right now with them personally, with sensitive data, with censorship, with everything going on politically with that. And I don't want to bring that into it, but I don't agree with them. I understand, though, the move that was made for it because they bet the house too much on big streamers to come in, and I guarantee that was probably their biggest, that was where they got bit the most at, is they offered way too much money to Shroud, to Ninja. It just didn't pan out, and it sucks. And it's the smaller fish that are getting hurt by this, and it's the employees, too. Like I said, who knows if Microsoft is transitioning employees, like usually when you, in terms of gaming at least, and obviously this isn't like it completely, it isn't like this at every place, I'm sure, but if you're developing a game and you have multiple teams underneath and you're at like, say Ubisoft Montreal or something like that, a large scale developer, you're pitching games all the time, you're pitching projects all the time that you want to do, and you finally land on when you start working on it, oh, it's scrapped. Okay, well, sometimes if you could move that team, you could take those people internally and move them to a different project, or hey, you were working on assets for this game and you're a level designer, we're gonna have you come and work on this project in the home stretch while it's crunching or whatnot, and then we'll reevaluate and look where we can go for there. That's not always the case with things like this, though, and that's what worries me on the tech side. On the hardware side, more or less, and granted, Mixer isn't, but when you think Microsoft, you're thinking more on the tech and hardware side. It doesn't always line up, so I'm a little worried about that. I hope people's jobs and livelihood are okay, especially, God forbid, right now what's going on with the world. But I don't know, man. It's shitty. It's just shitty. It's a shitty situation for a lot of people. I think it could have been handled much better, but hopefully those streamers are able to integrate well if they want to go to Facebook, if they, hopefully they're able to just transition their audience easily over to that, or if they're going to Twitch, and have that bigger pool of viewers that they could potentially reach. But then again, like you're saying, you're a small fish in a really fucking big pond, man. So it's going to be weird. It's shitty, but fingers crossed for everyone to hopefully get back to being able to do what they want and build an audience again. So, Mike, let's head on to the next one. If you weren't paying attention, Cyberpunk 2077 is obviously one of the biggest games coming out this year. They had what they call their Night City Wire event, which basically is their like Nintendo Direct. It's just like an info blast that they put out. But that happened this week, today, technically, which was yesterday when you get what I'm saying. It fucking happened this week. But Matt Kim over at IGN has a great write-up on it. I want to go through and just kind of talk on it because it is one of the biggest games coming out this year and one of my most anticipated games coming out this year. So, Cyberpunk 27 got a brand new reveal today through the Night City Wire, a digital live stream event, diving deeper into CD Projekt Red's upcoming RPG. There was a new trailer, new gameplay dive, and a look at the Cyberpunk Braindance feature. So, let's start there when we're talking Braindance. So what is Braindance in Cyberpunk 2077? Braindance is a recording of somebody else's experience and lets you live through their memories. Their sights, smells, sounds, everything will be experienced by you through Braindance. In an extended gameplay preview, the V, which is your created character that you make within the game, the V was shown living through the memory of somebody else's robbery on a grocery store. In an analysis mode, V was able to explore the same scene, but this time as an observer. They can move a camera around and analyze the memory from a new perspective. It's almost like a detective mode. Braindance was created in UC Santa Cruz as a therapy method, if I can spit that out. It was later used for more cranial thrills within the gaming, within the game world we're talking. There are negative side effects like flatlining, where someone can die while braindancing. CD Projekt Red says that braindance will be an important storytelling device to explore the world's history, philosophy, and different factions. So, also, too, Cyberpunk 2077 gameplay features were shown during Night City Wire. The player will be working with a character named Jackie on a hunt for a legendary chip of quote-unquote immortality. Jackie introduces the player to a fixer, which is basically like a doctor that will upgrade you and whatnot, that will introduce them to new chips and enhancements. The Mox is one of the gangs the player will encounter in Cyberpunk 2077 and craft a unique relationship with them. Outside of the city walls is a district called the Badlands. It's an open desert-like space filled with unique encounters called quote-unquote moments. The Adam Sandler shampoo is better. The Atom Smasher is a big modified enforcer introduced in the Cyberpunk tabletop RPG and is now in the game. Ripper Docs are different backstreet doctors in Night City that will enhance your character with new body mods. And last but not least, Cyberpunk Edge Runner anime is announced with Trigger and Netflix. So CD Projekt Red announced a new Cyberpunk anime that's being produced by Studio Trigger for Netflix. CD Projekt Red says development on the anime has been in the works for quite some time and is coming in supposedly 2022, which is really fucking long. I don't know why they announced it personally right now, but sure. And also to Akira Yamaoka, I hope I said that right. The composer of the Silent Hill series will be composing the music for the anime. So, Mike, after all that, really, Cyberpunk is one of those titles that I feel personally is such a complete blend and of a wide variety of gameplay mechanics from a plethora of genres, as really is its nature with such an open, lively world that you're immersing yourself with. So, from what we've seen today, do you think the title will be as immersive and massive as people have been really hyping it up to be, now that we're seeing even more stuff come out about it? And do you have any fears that one gameplay mechanic will overshadow others and possibly diminish the player's experience in any way, since there's so many moving parts involved with this?
Yeah, it definitely feels like we'll work on the first question first. So, with CD Projekt Red, their other super, popular game that sold like an insane amount, The Witcher 3, for anyone who lives under a rock. They did a Netflix show, on The Witcher completely, and after I watched The Witcher, and
what'd you think about it, out of curiosity?
I thought it was really good, the show.
I fuck with it. I really liked it. Like, shockingly liked it. I wasn't sure how I'd like Henry Cavill. I like Henry Cavill in a lot of things, but I was curious to see how he would fit as Geralt, especially, like, I was going through The Witcher 3 at that time, like, right before that series released. So, like, I was like, man, I'm really curious to see how he'll play off of that. But I love the series, to be quite honest. I'm really excited for the next one.
Yeah, I actually like the series, the TV show, a lot more than the game personally.
And it's closely tied. It's a little bit close. Not to interrupt again, sorry.
Yeah.
But it's also too based off of the books compared to the game, where, I mean,
right.
At the end of the day, they're all based off the same fucking material, off the books. At the end of the day, both are, but clearly on both sides, both the game and the TV series, I'm sure take I've never read the books, but each take their own liberties at how they tell the story to make it fit in that medium that they're telling. But I almost was with you until finally The Witcher 3 sunk its fucking hooks into me, and I think it was one of the best open world games I played in a long time. But continue. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. It's a game that I just need to spend more time playing, and unfortunately, when I was going to start diving into The Witcher 3, I was still playing Halo competitively. I was still doing other things, so it's just one of those things where I just have so much stuff going on that it's hard to really sink into it.
It took me 50 hours to play through just the regular campaign.
Right.
Like the main quest line.
When there's so much going on, with it like that, it's hard for me to really be able to have the time to dedicate to it. And I'm not saying everyone's not busy, but I still would like to. I still really enjoy playing Halo good Halo games competitively. So with all that being said, I thought that the Witcher TV show was spectacular. I thought it was really good. Maybe not spectacular, but I thought it was super solid. I'm excited to see where they go with season 2. But moreover, with them creating an anime, I'm excited for all those individuals that enjoy anime. I'm excited for people who, are excited to be really immersed in the cyberpunk realm. However, when you talk about just certain gameplay mechanics maybe potentially overshadowing others, it would be logical to think that a game developer may have issue balancing, what's most important. And it feels like that's something that every single developer has issues with. How can I balance all these different gameplay elements to make sure one isn't super, doesn't supersede the other? And I think that that's going to be a super difficult thing for the team over there to juggle. But, they're delaying the game. It gives me hope that even though they are putting a lot of moving parts into the game, part of their delays may be trying to figure out where the balance is between that. So it's encouraging. I know it's sucky that they continue to, kind of delay the game, but it's also encouraging because they're not in a huge rush to get it out. And we knew that was the case, but they're really doubling down on the fact that it's not a rush and they'll release it when it's ready.
No, 100%. And I will always, at this point, even if I didn't play The Witcher, even if I didn't get into The Witcher 3, I've known how much polish and how much, even if it didn't click for me, I knew how much polish, I knew how much heart, I knew how much density, I knew how much importance was put into that game. And by importance, I mean none of your time is wasted. When I played The Witcher 3, I wanted to go and do all the side quests I could. I didn't have... If I wanted to finish it in a, semi-normal amount of time, 50 hours on a game is ridiculous. Also, too, Sean Lane, former executive with PlayStation, did an interview earlier this week and came out and said, we definitely need to have more 12 to 15 hour experiences in the AAA gaming landscape. And I cannot fucking agree more than that, because I would rather play 50 12 to 15 hour experiences than 60 hour game. Now, granted, there's a lot of good 60 hour games out there, but in terms of me as a gamer, I'd much rather have that experience. But I digress. I agree with it, but you get what I'm saying. But none of my time was wasted. I wanted to go in. I wanted to get and actually hear all these stories that were being told in there. There's a couple side quests, like the theater side quest, where Geralt has to go and stand in as a performer within the theater that to help progress part of the plot, going through, because he needs to start getting people on board for his plan of action, and that's one of the things he has to do. And just some of the dialogue that was put in with that, with some of the audience members as well, while you're performing in it, cracks me up all the time when I'm thinking about it. And it's stuff like that it's that I probably didn't even really have. I probably could have gotten one of the, and I don't want to necessarily spoil it for people, because it ties into the main quest line, but I'm pretty sure I didn't have to do that. I could have gotten that other person in a different way, but I saw where part of this story was going, and I wanted to keep exploring that. None of the moments, every time you're doing something, it's with a purpose. And a lot of games that are really standing the test of time that we're seeing do that. And once I realized that, and once I saw how they're incorporating that into Cyberpunk, it was one of those, almost how I used to feel about Blizzard games, how I feel now with Naughty Dog games, how I used to feel with Bungie games. Cool, go ahead, take your time. I'm going to buy this no matter what, because I know how much polish you put into this. I know how much importance you put on the moments within these games, that I'd much rather you fine-tune that and make sure that all of those parts are ready before giving it to me, because I would rather have that, play through a 60-hour game and feel, that kind of, it was good, but and then you put out an update with more quest lines and whatnot, because they're going to support this game for quite a long time. They're going to have multiplayer come out within another year or two after its launch, from what it sounds like. So, I'd rather have that than a definitive edition of it down the road that may fix some things or add more content or whatnot. Like, I'd much rather have them take their time because I trust them at this point. But
right,
seeing some of the gameplay today, it did. I don't want to say it worried me, but there are times that I saw that maybe I get not that it's a direct correlation to it, but another FPS RPG that I think of when I see this is Fallout. Naturally I kind of draw towards that because Fallout is now, I mean, granted it was an isometric, RPG for such a long time, but now being known as a primary first-person RPG that requires, normally you're using, firearms in it, that I usually kind of draw comparisons with that a little bit. I don't want to see it blend into that too much where they put too much importance on, making it feel too much like a shooter and whatnot. And I feel like I saw a lot of that today. Like, combat's obviously important, but people are playing this game because it's immersive. It is deep. And kind of touching on the immersive levels of it, I think people are getting a little too hyped about this, in my opinion. Within reason, I should say. Like, you'll go on Reddit, or you'll go, like, the subreddit for the game, or Reset Era, and, I mean, there's people who are like, man, I hope I get to, like, design the shower in my apartment, and it's like, okay, you're not gonna fucking do that, dude, like,
aren't you the bad boy of Reset Era?
I am the bad boy of Reset Era, I don't know what to say, they got my fucking face with, like, the circle and the cross through it, like, but anyways.
Don't let Barry What, who?
Who? I don't know who you're talking about. We don't talk about him no more. But it does worry me whenever I see people with their expectations a little high like that. And granted, early on, this game was being shown as, by a lot of, influential people within games media and whatnot, saying, this is going to change how games of this style are made. This is going to change the gaming landscape in general, because people kept saying this is unlike anything I've played before. This is unlike anything I've seen before. So with having high expectations like that, to me, I just see, when I see the, like, oh, I gotta change the shower curtain in my thing, or I'm hoping, like, one person was like, I remember distinctly whenever I started feeling a little bit like, okay, you need to backpedal a little bit. Somebody was hoping that they could work as a sex worker in it and make, like, an hourly rate and build that into the economy within the game. And, like, people were like, dude, come on now. Like, you are not going to be able to do that in a video game if, one, it wants to get a M rating at minimum. Like, you're not going to be able to fucking do that. So, and ever in America, right? Yeah, exactly. So, to me, it's a little worrisome with how, leaning into being too much of a first-person shooter compared to, the RPG elements of it. People are more playing this for the immersion and living in that world than necessarily going through and doing a Destiny-style raid with it. And sometimes I felt like that a little bit, to an extent. Not as deep, obviously, but it did worry me a little bit, and it does worry me a little bit that people are overhyping this game just a tad. Like, it's going to be immersive, it's not going to be that immersive, and we clearly saw that today, where there's going to be a fucking shit ton to do in this world, and it's going to be stellar, and I can't wait to get lost in there, like I got lost in the continent in The Witcher. Like, I can't wait to do that, but you gotta be realistic about it. You gotta be just a little bit realistic.
Nah, full send on that.
Full send, true, yeah. Send it! Alright, let's head into the last news article for today, Mike. Yes, Batman Arkham developer Rocksteady is making a Suicide game. At least Tom Phillips over on Eurogamer says. As always, link in the description. So, a list of leaked domain names has set internet tongues wagging that Rocksteady, developer of Batman Arkham Asylum series, is working on a game centered on DC's Suicide Squad. The domain names popped up on Reset Era, where fans noted that they were registered by a company connected to Warner Brothers. Eurogame understands this to be accurate. I've heard that one particular phrase, and this is Tom obviously, I've heard one particular phrase registered as a domain, quote, Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League.com is a contender for the game's final title, and a good summation of what you can expect Rocksteady's next project to be about. Other domain registered include SuicideSquadGame.com and GothamKnightsGame.com. Gotham Knights refers to the unannounced Batman game currently in development at Batman Arkham Origin Studios, Warner Bros. Montreal. Both projects are set to be teased at Warner Bros. Upcoming DC fandom event in August, Eurogamer understands. Expect to see a little of Gotham Knights, which, while unannounced, has been continually hyped via various Court of Owls hints for more than a year. Expect to see very little of Rocksteady's Suicide Squad, which is further off from launch. Both projects are being developed for next-gen consoles. Eurogamer has contacted publisher Warner Brothers for comment. Fans have long speculated what London-based developer Rocksteady Studios has been working on. It has now been 5 years since the launch of its last big project, Batman Arkham Knight. Teases in that game appeared to point to a Superman project at one potential follow-up, though Rocksteady has been set on Suicide Squad now for years. So, shocker, Mike, another week, another rumor regarding not only the WB Montreal Batman game, but also Rocksteady's next project that they've had under wraps for years now. Shocker. I feel like it's every week we talk about that, which I'm not against because I fucking love the Batman IP. I love these games. Especially, I go to bat for Batman Arkham Origins a lot, as kind of the black sheep of that series, not being developed completely under Rocksteady, but with WB Montreal. I think it's one of the best Batman games, or Batman stories within video games, personally, but hey, that's just me. So, we've talked about the WB Montreal Batman title ad nauseum for so long, so let's put that kind of to the side for just a quick second and focus on Rocksteady. Why does a game surrounding the Suicide Squad make sense for Rocksteady to tackle compared to the dozens of other IP that DC have in their gallery? And really, how do you think, kind of the elephant in the room, how do you think the potential selling of WB games by AT&T could affect really both of these titles eventually seeing the light of day, considering DC's IP wouldn't be included in that deal?
Personally, I did not see the Suicide Squad movie. I was kind of skeptical of it to begin with. So I was skeptical as it was, and then kind of everyone confirmed my skepticism with it. So I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna skip that. You know what I mean? No hard feelings, but I'll skip it.
Literally, I'll never forget, Molly and I were in the theater watching that, like, on opening day. Actually, no, it was that Thursday of, like, where instead of them doing midnight showings, they do, like, a Thursday 8 o'clock showing. I remember going to the movie theater, seeing that in there, wearing my Batman shirt, like the fucking nerd I am. I'm in there, we're all decked out in Batman, there's other comic book fans in there, we're all like, fuck yeah, we don't believe we don't believe the critic reviews, whatever, fuck it, we'll...
Usually, to be fair, critic reviews you can always take with, like, a huge block of salt, not even grain. Specifically
with film, like, granted, I know we're kind of getting on a tangent here, but with film, compared to video games are a little bit different because you can, like I understand why scores vary, but, like, sometimes with critic, like you could have a little bit, like, video game scores, I think, are a little more concrete. I mean, that you're experiencing a lot of the same things, you could play a lot of the same things, where film is so much more, you're getting one experience out of it, where video games you can get multiple experiences out of how you play a game. Even if it is just a straightforward linear game, you could do massively different things, and where it's so hard to, where I don't put a lot of like faith in film and music reviews and TV reviews, because it's art, it's interpretive, it's all in how you take it. And so is video games, but you can interact with it. You can get something out of it outside of just of what's getting told to you. Where a movie, you're getting told one specific thing. Album, you're listening to one specific thing, and one specific, like, voice that's telling you that. So anyway, I digress. Continue, but I remember seeing that literally that night, and it was like the Chris Farley meme where he's, like, smiling, looking up, and then slowly, like,
oh no,
wait, what? I leaned over to Molly. I was like, so how are you thinking about it? She was like, she was just like, I don't know, what do you think? I instantly was like, this fucking sucks. This is so bad. But go ahead, continue.
So I feel like if they were ever going to do anything with Suicide Squad, I feel like everyone kind of agrees. I think it would take a special director. Now, I'm kind of a rightfully so, I'm a Chris Nolan junkie. Like, I just think everything he touches is just so good.
Yeah.
And I think, like, he would have been much better for the job. But I think everyone kind of agrees that the entire, like, mentality around Suicide Squad, all of that, I think it's a pretty... It's going to be a cool video game if it's made, because I think you can just do it correctly. I don't think...
Well, there's space to breathe, too. Like, in a video game, and that's the thing where Molly and I were discussing the other night, with games like those, third-person narrative cinematic games like Uncharted, Last of Us, such and such, she loves watching me play those. Like, she likes playing video games with me, but she loves watching those because she's like, oh, it's like a movie. And she's like, I wish... We were talking about how Last of Us was going to be... HBO was doing a series on that now, because she was like, weren't they making a movie? I'm like, no, they canceled it. They're doing it as a series now. She's like, oh, okay. She was like, I was going to say it was going to make a great movie. And I was like, well, the thing with that is, why video game movies never seem to work is because you're investing 20 hours or so into this game to get this story out of it that's being told in a 2-hour time frame on average. Like, it doesn't work. It's trying to condense too much, where you've been living in a character's shoes for 20 hours and you're going through these experiences that can only be told in that medium that way. Where, yeah, maybe a TV series can trend in that right direction because it has the time to flesh out those side characters that you would have in a game, doing side missions and whatnot, that you get that fulfillment out. But movies, you can't do that. You have 2 hours. There's a specific story you could be told in that. Where a Suicide Squad, holy shit, Suicide Squad, there you go, Travis, talk. You're able, a game like that, with so many moving parts and so many moving characters in it, you have the time to actually focus on those characters. They get more than just 2 lines in it, like a couple of the characters in the Suicide Squad movie did. Like, we've seen ensemble games work before, where ensemble movies, it takes a special sauce to make those work, because look at how Justice League originally panned out compared to Avengers, where you've seen the Avengers films work out because those ensemble movies, they built those characters up for fucking 10 years compared to DC that just tried to throw them in together over like a 2-year period of a couple movies. So I agree with you. Like, totally agree that I think in a game it will work. I think it has the potential to work. Yeah, and it's just like, I just didn't agree with the movie. I didn't agree with the cast, but luckily with video games you can kind of do your own thing with the cast. But as far as will the game see the light of day, I think the potential sale, if Rocksteady knew that WB was trying to sell, what incentive do they have to putting out a game to make those people more money when they're looking to dump? You know what I mean? So I think it gives it more of a realistic chance for them to actually appear. I'm just curious. I'm curious to hear what you have to say, since you're a Batman junkie, and I'm curious to see what you think about it. Well, my thing is, you would imagine a sale like that's that big, because we've seen it now with Fox, 20th Century Fox being sold off to Disney and whatnot. Deals like that aren't overnight. Deals like that that are of that scale. And not that this is technically at that scale, but we're starting to trend in that direction, where we're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars for some hefty, weight to it, which we even talked about last week on last week's show, about how maybe that WB deal isn't as, beefy as people think it is, because it doesn't include the DC likenesses.
Doesn't include any good games.
No good games besides Mortal Kombat. The only, outside of that, like, you're not getting the Harry Potter IP, you're not getting the DC IP with that, which is where people are probably most excited for, where they're wanting those are 2 major universes that they're wanting to see those IP come into games and have experiences in that. So, to me, though, you would have to imagine, you look at, kind of a project like Hellblade, or even Psychonauts 2, or The Outer Worlds. you look at games like those and projects like those after acquisitions like Microsoft's made, that they still came out multi-platform. They still came out on various things where they're built into that, even though, say, you know, clearly they don't want... Clearly, if Xbox has its, Microsoft has its way, they would rather, the Outer Worlds come out on Xbox and PC, and granted, they're making more money off this and whatnot with, a PS4 release and whatnot, but they're wanting to keep all the money internally. They're making more money off that. They're making more money if it's coming from internally instead of, partnering with a third party and paying out to them and whatnot. Like, it's coming right from their first party studio. Where, at that acquisition, they had built into it that, okay, well, we're still going to release this. We're still going to, it's already too far along in development that's far too much money for us to waste to just scrap it and let it go. So, with an acquisition like that, I'm sure there would be some kind of, built into it that they would either have to pay more out to DC, saying, hey, for the acquisition, say, Take-Two or, God forbid, EA buys them. They may say, hey, we're going to do whatever it was at, I think it was at $400 million or something ridiculous like that. We're paying that, and then we're going to do an extra $100 million just for the likenesses of that, for this game and this game, just to publish them, to get them out.
Right.
After that, that's it. Because I'm sure DC will want fucking astronomical amounts of money to be able to use that going to a new home instead of, working with WB and both with the Harry Potter license and the DC license have worked in multiple facets of entertainment, not just games, but movies, books, TV, everything like that for years and decades now, that I'm sure they're very comfortable with each other and working with each other and able to make deals that are a little more comfortable. And I'm sure if I'm DC or whatever, I'm fucking throwing the kitchen sink out if I'm going to a new partner like that to see how much money I can get out of them. Especially if it's somebody like fucking EA who has far too much money to know what to do with. So, they have that FIFA money and that Madden money. So, if you ask me, I don't think if the acquisition, to me, in my opinion, wouldn't get in the way of that, because they would find a way. There's too much money invested in it to not let it come out, and too much money left on the table to make off of those games to just be it's going to go into development hell now. We have a finished game. But at the same time, too, Nintendo with fucking Star Fox 2, they finished that game, and it never came out until 2017 on the Super Nintendo Mini, officially, at least. So, who the fuck knows? I doubt that would ever happen, because it's in a capitalistic society like we are right now, primarily where these games are being focused on at, they're going to want to make that cheddar. There's too much money left on the table to not. But to me, like I said before, though, too, with the Suicide Squad thing, I definitely think that, to me, it is definitely the right medium to do that, because, and just thinking out loud, we're looking at, Marvel's Avengers that's coming out. They just had a war table this week. It's a Destiny-like experience that you're going to have, that you're going to play across a multitude of characters and doing missions and different things like that in a Destiny-style universe. That, who knows, maybe that's what Rocksteady is working towards, something to counteract Marvel with that, to say, oh, if you're somebody who's I just don't vibe with Marvel characters. I've always vibed with Batman and Superman, and, I've been a DC supporter. Cool, here's your experience like this. Who the hell knows, though, if that's actually going to be the case, but, it may be. So, to me, you look at ensembles outside of the Justice League. The Justice League's been, those characters, the Batman and Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, all those have been done, at least been represented before in a style, even with Injustice, the Injustice franchise, they've been represented, where that style of an ensemble of the Suicide Squad, in gaming at least, hasn't really, and their last movie release didn't work out. Hopefully now that James Gunn is doing the Suicide Squad, with a really good cast of actors in it, that's coming out, I believe it was supposed to come out the end of this year, but obviously that got bumped, and I don't know, it's coming out within the next year or so, so hopefully that has some good grace. It has a lot of hype around it, so I'm I'm not cautiously optimistic. I'm just optimistic, I would think, about having a Suicide Squad game. I think that video games are the right medium for that amount of characters. And you're able to juggle that, and you're able to control that a little bit more, and you're not time constrained. You're not, they've had, 5 years now to develop that game and get it out there. So I'm excited about it. I hope that's what comes from it. To be quite honest, I'm much more excited about the WB Montreal Batman game, but that's just because I'm a Batman fanatic. And I know that game exists. It has to exist at this point. I don't think anybody is doubting that it doesn't exist. It just needs to be shown now. And I think now that DC is doing their online events, with Comic-Con being online and whatnot, and not being obviously having the same impact probably that it will, DC having their own style event for their projects that they're putting out, makes a lot of sense for it to be at that, because they control the message then. So I'm excited about that. Hopefully we see all of that. Mike, I think it's time to roll into Party Chat for the week. As always, if you haven't been listening from the beginning, Party Chat is a segment that we used to do earlier on in the show, where we take viewer questions from you and whatnot like that. But we're bringing it back, but putting a little bit of a twist on it. So we're going to propose one question each week at the end of the show that we want to discuss. Could be as simple as, what's your favorite story beat in the game, or what have you been playing during quarantine, or could be more in depth as to why this negative stigma around gaming still exists. And after answering ourselves, we'll kick it over to you to tweet or send in your responses to the question over on Twitter at GPGC Podcast, and we'll read some of those responses the following week of that question. So last week's question: what do you think the biggest change to Halo Infinite is going to be, with it being considered a quote-unquote spiritual reboot? This could be gameplay, presentation, UI, etc. Anything and everything is on the table. Undone Architect sent in: I think more RPG elements will be emphasized within the game. I don't think Chief will level up and gain XP, but I think his gear will be modded and improved by finding various quote-unquote parts around the level. I definitely think that's a good indication. I think you're seeing that a lot with games that are trying to evolve in a cinematic way that were linear, which Halo was a very linear experience with its single player games, or with its single player campaign and co-op campaign. I guess I should say campaign in general. You get what I'm saying. It was a very linear experience overall. So you're seeing a lot of those linear experiences, like I keep talking about The Last of Us, where you're collecting pills, you're collecting things like that you can upgrade your abilities and also upgrade your weapons by finding parts around weapon parts that you can dump into improving stability with a gun, or adding a new scope, or different things like that. I wouldn't think that's completely out of the question, especially with how they're wanting to evolve that franchise. And that's easily one way to do it. Look at Doom, even. Doom, you're upgrading parts across, you're finding new weapons, things like that. You're seeing it more and more happen with these, first-person shooter campaigns. And especially something like Doom, which is very heavily first-person shooter campaign. You're finding ways, you're seeing upgrades that you can find along the way, and I just think those little RPG elements are going to help with immerse in that Halo experience that people are wanting to see. They're wanting 343 and Xbox are wanting you to invest more time, whether you are a single player, a casual gamer doing a single player only, or you're somebody who's multiplayer. Multiplayer, they seem to, at least on paper, the way they're talking, really committing to it and being that esports flagship title with Microsoft. But single player campaign, people are wanting more cinematic narrative experiences, and I think having those RPG elements really help invest you into that. So this week's question, though, with Halo Infinite technically being cross-gen, what franchise do you think is strong enough for Microsoft to put a new entry in as the first Xbox Series X exclusive title? So what I'm really proposing is, we know now Xbox Series X isn't going to have any exclusive titles where it won't be available to play on Xbox One until, I think Matt Booty said 2 years from launch. Really, in year 2 or something, that's when you'll start to see it. So, Mike, what's the first Xbox franchise you think is strong enough to be that first title that says, we're putting this out because this is the reason why you want to buy an Xbox Series X, not just because it'll play your backwards compatible games. You want to buy it for this experience.
I would say, if we're being honest, I would say because it's still very early in infancy in its stage of development,
Mhm.
I would think like the Initiatives game would probably be the one that I would point to say,
Yeah.
that might be the one that is only on, like, you have to upgrade for, because it's still so early in development, and it's gonna be a big hitter because they definitely went out and did some headhunting to get the devs for that studio.
Mhm.
So I would say, a great guess would be the Initiative, and their project will be the first one that's going to be exclusive on the Series X.
Mhm.
What do you have to say about it?
That's the one that instantly comes to mind for me as well. And it was funny. Somebody brought up, or somebody posted on the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit or whatever, that sometimes we'll get some big stuff that seems to leak, but a lot of people use it as a, like, hey, here's stuff that we've found that's not officially been said by anybody, that lead to usually correct style, information, I guess, down the road. But somebody put up that, like, oh, somebody posted this article saying that they've heard about or seen what the Initiative's doing, and they, like, listed all these things. They're very generic, like, leaning into immersive gameplay and high fidelity and blah blah blah. And it's like, yeah, that's like 70% of AAA fucking games that come out, of course, like, duh. So to me, though, like, with something like this, if it is the Initiative, though, I don't know if it's a new IP, like what they're working on. Then I think it is potentially like a Perfect Dark, at least something with brand recognition to an extent. I don't know if Gears is strong enough. I don't think, personally, and, like, you can't put a Forza out or anything like that, because while those games do great, review great, and sell great, for something like that, you typically see it like we're seeing with, on Sony's side too, putting out a Gran Turismo within the launch window, at least within the first year or two of the game. It's going to be, you're playing those games a lot for the tech of it. It's a tech showpiece for a lot of people, at least early on. Early releases in the generation usually seem to be tech releases. So if this is the reason to buy it, I feel like something like that, like a Forza, can't be it or anything. I don't think it's strong enough to do that, unless you get, you somehow swing some big third party, agreement or timed exclusivity or something that, like, I don't even know, man. Like, you would somehow, like how Sony had the timed exclusivity with Final Fantasy VII Remake, and Microsoft somehow swung that next time, or something that major. But I don't even see that working out, because Square Enix would obviously want far too much money to make that happen, and I think Microsoft would rather focus internally on their studios. But my gut says the Initiative, whatever they're working on. But if that's the case, I don't think it's a completely brand new IP. But who knows? It may come out, and it may be something that, I mean, we definitely, if I'm a betting man, and I'd like to do some kind of betting special before we have the July event or something like that, to put some quote unquote money down on it or whatever, put some pizza bets or whatever down on, what's going to be shown at that event. And I definitely think that the Initiative's project is going to appear in some regard at that July event. I don't think it's coming out, a launch or launch window even, but I think maybe like a 2022 release or something like that. But I think we're going to find out a little bit more about that. And I definitely think that's going to be, their project is going to be, from in the way they've talked about it, even, of being this massive, like, not step forward, but like this massive project that's going to fully take advantage. They keep saying it's going to take advantage of Xbox Series X hardware, outside of just it's 4K 60 now, and it's, upping your gameplay a little bit, or the fidelity of your games and whatnot. Like, it seems like it's going to completely take a hold of that tech, like we're seeing with, bigger projects from Sony with their SSD technology and whatnot. Like Horizon Zero Dawn isn't a launch title. It's coming within the next, the first year and a half, 2 years of the game, that they're fully taking on. Hey, we don't want any loading screens at all. We want the world to be seamless. You to go in and out of houses and not have to worry about that. So something like that I could definitely see them doing with, but I personally don't think it'll be a brand new IP if that's the case. So now it's time to hear from you. write in at Twitter, at GPGC Podcast. We'll read some of those responses, what you think about the question that we asked this week, saying, with Halo Infinite technically being a cross-gen title, what franchise do you think is strong enough for Microsoft to put a new entry as the first Xbox Series X exclusive title? We want to hear from you what you think. So tweet at us at GPGC Podcast. Let us know what you think, or in the YouTube comments. So Mike, I think that's going to do it for our show this week. Why don't you tell people where they can find you, talk about all the video game stuff that we talked about today, like Cyberpunk 2077 Mixer going down, and potentially new Batman title. Finally, if we fucking eventually hear from it, where can people find you on the internet to talk about that?
You can find me at TOYSXLDIER on Twitter. That's Toy Soldier with an X instead of the second O. And you can find me at MP_Toy Soldier on Twitch.
Nice. And as always, I'm your host, Travis White, aka Travis on most internet platforms, including Twitter at Travis_, that's TRAVLESS_. You can also find me streaming time to time on twitch.tv/Travis_, same as Twitter. And if you want to play some video games with me over on Xbox Live, you can find me just regular Travis, TRAVLESS. And that's also, like I said, on multiple other platforms. If you want to play some video games on, that's the easiest way to find me. It's just Travis. So that being said, this has been your newest episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox Game Pass, and PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversations around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us wherever you get a podcast at. Review us, rate us, all that jazz, wherever you get a podcast at. And follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show and video games like and our dope giveaways, which we have some cooking up. Trust me, just simmer on it a little bit, we got you. We'll get you the hookup. So Mike, I think that's going to do it for this week. Thank you so much for everyone for listening, sharing, and being a part of our growing community. Game on, wash your fucking hands, Black Lives Matter, and we will see you next week.